Hello there. This is 6.4 Mastery Practice with Mr. Lamb, and we are going to be classifying quadrilaterals. Big thing that we need to know with quadrilaterals, and this is kind of an important thing, is this sheet right here. All right, we need to know all of these properties. This was your 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 stuff. You need to know that in a parallelogram, these 6 properties exist for every single parallelogram. And I've kind of broken it down horizontally as well. So when it comes to the sides of a parallelogram, both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. When it comes to angles, opposite angles are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary. And when it comes to diagonals, diagonals bisect each other, and one diagonal creates 2 congruent triangles. That's true in every single parallelogram. Then we learned in 6.2 that a rhombus is a type of parallelogram. So all of those 6 things exist, all 6 of them from parallelogram, and we know that a 7th trait is another trait about sides. All sides are congruent. And about diagonals, diagonals are perpendicular. Those are true for a rhombus, along with those 6. So it actually has 8 things. When it comes to a rectangle has all 6 from parallelogram, all 6 of them, plus its 7th and 8th are a little different than a rhombus, but its all angles are 90 and diagonals are congruent. And then for a square, it's everything on this page. For a square, it's this 6 and these 4. Alright, so it is all of them. Alright, it is all of them. And there's actually one extra one here. The diagonals are perpendicular, and they're also angle bisectors, which is kind of nice. So, with that being said, I want to take a look at each one of these problems, and I'm going to be utilizing those traits of those figures. So this one says, in the following parallelogram, ABCD, the measure of angle DAB. So let me get a highlighter ready. So DAB, so that angle right there is 3x plus 2. And then DCB, I'll change colors. DCB, this angle up here is 8x minus 14. Determine the value of x. So again, big thing here, it asked me to determine the value of x. That's what I'm looking for. My answer has to say x equals. Alright, so how will I go about this? Well, this yellow angle down here, angle A, and this angle up here, angle C, those are opposite angles, and I know in my quadrilaterals that opposite angles are congruent. So my 3x plus 2 is going to be equal to 8x minus 14. Subtract 3x on both sides. So this side will have a 2. And subtract 3x from 8x, I get 5x minus 14. Add 14 to both sides. 14 plus 2 is 16 equals 5x. And then I'm going to divide by 5. And 16 divided by 5 is 3.2. So x equals 3.2. And it says round to 1 decimal point. That is 1 decimal point. Says solve for x. I did solve for x. So for this problem, x is equal to 3.2. And again, the trait that I used, opposite angles are congruent. Next question. Question number 2. In the following parallelogram, ADC. So I was talking about angle ADC. So let's highlight it. ADC up here. And then CBA. Happens. CB A. So again, it appears that I have two opposite angles, and we know that opposite angles are congruent. So the fact that we have these opposite angles here, and I know that opposite angles have to be congruent again. So again, just like the first problem, 2x plus 4 is equal to 7x minus 10. I'll subtract 2x on both sides. That'll give me 4. And 5x minus 10. I'm going to add 10 on both sides. 14 equals 5x. And that means x is going to equal 14 divided by 5. 14 divided by 5. Very similar to this one, 2.8. So it's going to equal 2.8. So, question 2, very similar to question number 1. All right, question number 3, this one looks a little different. It says, as part of your preparation for math field day, complete the following chart indicating where the attribute is always true for the figure. And then answer the questions. So which attribute is or are not shared by both the square and the rhombus? So, all right, so a rectangle, isn't a rectangle equilateral, meaning are all four sides the same? And that is no. Are all the angles the same? Yes, a rectangle has all 90-degree angles, so that's a yes. Is a rectangle four-sided? That's a yes. I'm putting X's in there if it's true. Quadrilateral. Is a quadrilateral always equilateral? No. Is it always equiangular? No. Is it always four-sided? Yes. A rhombus, is it always equilateral? Yes, by definition. Is it always equiangular? No. Does it always have four sides? Yes. And is a square equilateral? Yes. Is it equiangular? Yes. All 90s. Is it four-sided? Yes. So the question is, which attribute is not shared by both the square and the rhombus? So equilateral is shared. Four-sided is shared. Which one is not shared by both? Equiangular. So my answer is equiangular. And again, it's equiangular because it says not shared. All right, make sure that you're being very careful with that. Make sure that you're checking that off, not shared. Next one has another parallelogram, ABCD. Is this like the first one again? Oh, nope, this one's going to be different. So this says the measure of angle ADB. So ADB. And then the measure of angle CBD. So looking at these two angles, I can tell that because AD is parallel to CB, because the left is parallel to the right, cut by a transversal, these two angles are alternate interior angles. And if you remember all the way back to Unit 2, alternate angles, when I have parallel lines, alternate angles are congruent. So that means these two things have to be congruent or equal. So 3x plus 6 has to be equal to 10x minus 16. Subtract 3x on both sides. 6 10x minus 3x is 7x minus 16. Add 16 to both sides. 22 equals 7x. And then divide by 7. 22 divided by 7 is 3.1. Again, that's rounded to the nearest tenth. What does the question ask me to find? Alright, always a big thing here. It says find x. I'm going to double check here. Yes, this one said find x as well. Make sure I'm answering the proper question. And we'll see some of them that will go to a different question. They're not going to ask us to find x, they're going to ask us to find a side. Alright, next question. Which of the following terms could not be used to describe the polygon below? So, cannot be used to describe the polygon below. Alright, is it a quadrilateral? Yes, it has 4 sides. Is it a square? It has 4 equal sides, but it does not have a 90-degree angle. So I could not call this a square. Could I call it a parallelogram? Yes, because opposite sides are congruent. Could I call it a rhombus? Yes, because all 4 sides are congruent. So what could I not call it? I could not call it a square. Which statement about quadrilaterals is true? So I should have some falses, and I should have a true. And is every rectangle a parallelogram? Yes, that is true. And here's why. All right, I want you to think about this hierarchy. All right, this will help. So I have in the world a bunch of quadrilaterals. That means that they have 4 sides. And then if I have 4 sides, then it may be a parallelogram if it has the right properties. It may be, and by the way, I want the properties. A quadrilateral with 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel is called a parallelogram. If it has 1 pair of parallel sides, it's called a trapezoid. And if it has no parallel sides, but it has consecutive sides congruent, it's called a kite. So that is 3 different types of quadrilaterals. A quadrilateral could be a parallelogram, quadrilateral could be a trapezoid, quadrilateral could be a kite. All right, they all have 4 sides. They're all quadrilaterals. All right, if it is a parallelogram, then it could be special, and it could be a rectangle, or it could be a rhombus. It could be a rectangle, and it could be a rhombus. And again, if it is it has 90-degree angles, we call it a rectangle. If it has congruent sides, we call it a rhombus. If it's a trapezoid, there is a special trapezoid as well. It is if the non-parallel sides are the same. It's called an isosceles trapezoid. And that is a special type of trapezoid. Kites, I don't know of any special types of kites. This actually is not covered much in geometry in high school. But there is one more thing, is in the quadrilateral world, if it is a parallelogram, if it's both a rectangle and a rhombus, so actually if these two things are both true at the same time, then it creates this super figure called a square. So as I look at this on a question level, every rectangle here is also a parallelogram, yes, because it's underneath the umbrella of parallelogram. But it says, is every parallelogram also a rectangle? No, because parallelogram does not fall underneath the rectangle umbrella. Every square is a rectangle. Every square is a rhombus. Every rectangle is a parallelogram. Every rhombus is a parallelogram. Every rectangle is a quadrilateral. Every square is a parallelogram. Every square is a quadrilateral. So I can always go to a level above it, and every square is a type of that. So is every parallelogram a rectangle? No, because rectangle's underneath parallelogram. Is every rectangle a rhombus? No, they're on the same level. Is every rhombus a rectangle? No, because they're on the same level. So the only answer that makes sense, every rectangle is also a parallelogram. Next one says, which quadrilateral does not, and make sure you notice that word, does not always have diagonals of equal length. So equal diagonals, if I look back, equal diagonals is a rectangle or square, because square is everything. So rectangles or squares. Rectangles or squares. So it says not, so I won't pick square, and I won't pick rectangle. So my option is rhombus and isosceles trapezoid. And here's the other thing. Now you know isosceles trapezoids have congruent diagonals. This one is rhombus. This one is rhombus. Diagonals are not equal in length in a rhombus, but they are in the other three. And the last one, and it says that this is a rhombus. Okay, so because I know that this is a rhombus, some stuff's going to change. All right, so let me first label all of this stuff. It says in rhombus ABCD, the length of diagonal BD. Okay, so what does this mean? Let me think. BD, this whole thing, is 22, which means that each part, because remember diagonals bisect each other, so AC cuts BD in half, so this side will be 11 and this side will be 11 because it has to add up to 22. It says the length of diagonal AC is 12. Okay, so if this whole diagonal is 12, the whole diagonal is 12, then that means it's got to be cut in half. So half of 12 is 6 and 6. What is the length of CD? So it wants me to find this. Here. Now the thing that you need to know, right, is in this middle, because it's a rhombus, the diagonals are perpendicular to one another, which means all of these angles in here are 90s. So I have a bunch of 90-degree angles. So if I want to find x, if you look at this triangle here, D to the center to C and back, this triangle over here is a right triangle. Let me draw it. So this is a right triangle. Alright, here it is. Alright, maybe. Let me spin that thing a little bit more. Alright, we're close, aren't we? Alright, so we're pretty close there. So if I pull this triangle right here, I pull this thing out. That triangle right there gets pulled out, and I already know that this bottom is 6. This side is 11, and this side is x. And I want to be able to find x, right? The length of CD. So the length of CD is going to be x. I just need to find it. This is a right triangle, so that means x squared plus, oh, I'm sorry, legs, 6 squared plus 11 squared has to equal the hypotenuse squared. So that's 36 plus 121 equals x squared I guess I can make these things into squares for you. Forgot I can do this. So 36 plus 121 is 157. That's going to equal x squared. So that means x is going to equal the square root of 157. And what is the square root of 157? Well, second, the square root of 157 is 12.5. So over here, 12.5 rounded to 1 decimal point. So yes, on these questions you are going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem. Make sure that you know that diagonals bisect each other, and this is a big one right here, right? The big key here is when it tells you that it's a rhombus, then I know that I have 90-degree angles in the middle. So hope that helps. I hope that helps you with 6.4 and at least get you going. Again, if you have any questions, get stuck on anything, feel free to send me an email, stop me in class, and I'll be more than welcome to help you out. All right, guys, have a great day.